Western North Dakota. The men and women in blue are coming at you. We're back at it 2023, straight off the cuff. Lieutenant Mike Cannell. Good morning, man.
Hey, good morning, Lieutenant Clouser. How are we doing?
Doing pretty good.
A little hiatus.
A little hiatus in the month of December and the holiday season. So,
Yep.
And we're both looking forward to kind of getting back into the groove here and getting something out to our community.
Exactly. Yep. You had obviously a little bit of a big life change in your neck of the woods there. So congrats again on the twins. Everybody's doing good?
Yeah, they are doing good. We, just for your listeners and viewers, we added 2 more daughters to the family. My wife birthed twins at the end of November and then took a hiatus in December for some paternity leave, and department was real supportive of that. So now sitting on 4 daughters under the age of 6.
Oh, boy.
So for anybody out there looking to say a prayer at night, as I've said,
you could use all you can get.
Yeah, if you want to fill in a void, think of me. So we got some really good stuff today. I got something, a quote that we've kind of been working with to set a tone and fitting for our special guest that we're going to be kicking over to here in a few minutes after we get through some department happenings and such, current states and some goals for 2023 and things we want to share and get out to you guys. But it is this. And it says, what most people don't understand is that you could be the worst person in the world that ever existed. But if you needed help, I would be there. I will show up when your friends won't, or if they run away. I work with brave men and women who do the same. We go, we help. It is what we do. And we have a career law enforcement officer in today. A little piece of history for the Dickinson Police Department and our community that I think encapsulates that a little bit. And you and I both know him personally. And
yep.
So
I don't know where you're getting these quotes from, but every time you pick one up, it matches that person that's sitting in the chair across from us here. So I'm really excited to bring him in here today. I'm glad he could join us here today. I've had very, very fond memories of working with him back in the day, which it doesn't seem that long ago, but it's kind of adding up there already. But so I'm excited to talk to him here in a few.
Yeah, just as we were priming the conversation, he had referenced like almost a dozen years since his departure from us. And and then the days are long, but the years are short.
Exactly.
You're like, wow.
Yep.
So, I guess maybe for anybody out there interested in currently what's happening in the department at the beginning of the year as we move forward with it, there's number one, we're always looking for good men and women that want to serve the community, step into the role with the badge and the gun and that public servantry end. I know you've been doing a lot of good stuff on the advertising and marketing from your public information officer standpoint, and we currently are sitting at 5 openings.
I think 4. We have 1 that's somewhat pending. We have a patrol interview position that's just closing, so we're going to be doing some interviews on that. Got quite a few applicants here. We're again still in picky mode. We've mentioned it a couple times on the podcast that we're kind of fortunate to the point we could be full staffed if we wanted to be, but that's again we're continuing to be very choosy about who we decide wears our patch. So it takes a little bit longer to get people onboarded. Get them through the background process. But we just want to make sure that we're feeling the best officer for the citizens of Dickinson. Yeah,
we are sitting right now with 3 officers in training. We have a new basic academy that's going to be coming up in March. And so probably we'll be sending a few more than that as a group, which would be the largest group that the police department has ever sent to a basic academy.
I would think so. We might even have to revert back to our guest here today to see if there was anything else way in the past, but recent past, this is definitely the most we've ever sent through, I think, all at once. It's just kind of the perfect storm of things. Something I guess that kind of snuck up on us here is the legislature had allocated some money for the Law Enforcement Training Academy in Bismarck is where we send our officers, our new officers. Ended up being a revamp or remodel that kind of popped up right when this January session was supposed to start. So we had to get a little creative, get back to maybe a little bit of a COVID mindset almost, where we're doing some remote stuff in lieu of having them go to the academy here this spring, I guess, the spring class. But we'll make it through. It'll be good to get these guys and gals back and on the streets.
Well, I think it's a safe plug for us here too, for our citizens out there paying attention to, it's the middle of a biennium and bills being passed and how is money being spent and where it's being allocated. That our North Dakota Academy has served a lot of men and women in the uniform over the history of its time. It's what I think what we could safely say is the facility itself is a little bit dated, and I think all of us within the profession, I've been there. I'm not worried. I've already been through it, so I don't need to worry about doing anything for the next generation. That's just the opposite. I think we all would love to see some funds and the citizens of North Dakota paying attention to getting us a new law enforcement academy in the state, basic academy in the state. Right. That would be a great thing before we retire.
That would be great to say. I mean, it's you put in, you get what you put out, and if you're able to do, exponentially different things with a different footprint, out there, I think you're just, that quality training you're going to get out of it is worth its weight in gold, right there. The officers that you're going to be putting out. So it'd be that, and it complements the other, private colleges around the state. I'm a Lake Region State College grad, up in Devil's Lake. That's where I went to my academy at. So there's different avenues for people to get into law enforcement. If you come to us with no experience, obviously we'll send you to Leda and Bismarck. If not, there's those private universities up there that do different sessions throughout the year. I think even a couple summer sessions. Fargo PD is doing their complete own academy. Right. They're really outside the box there on that one. So, it's and potentially even our neck of the woods, examining some maybe some opportunity there to kind of go down that path as well, to partner with
career and technical stuff that's coming here locally with a footprint. And the Highway Patrol certainly has had this as a focus for a while, and there's been lobbying and jockeying for probably a decade or more on really trying to make some stuff happen. So it's out there, the conversation's there, but just in a time where there's this mass crisis in trying to recruit and bring people into the profession, and I think that a new law enforcement training facility for the state could be a huge recruiting factor to draw them new officers in, and laterals, looking to see how North Dakota's prioritizing training and such for
absolutely. And I think that's what this new generation really just is really drawn to, is just kind of the not necessarily the bells and whistles, but just the the attention that we place on them and their learning experience, and how much they're able to grasp. So anything we can do to help them out and get people through the door on that'd be worthwhile.
Yeah. And maybe back in more locally here, internally focused, some of the stuff that the city of Dickinson is continuing to prioritize to help with first responders and just employment, and some positions even outside of that in other departments, public works, Class A drivers. But we have now went towards incentives for laterals coming in, and some sign-on bonuses that are there for our listeners and viewers. And you can seek that out on our advertisements that are on our Facebook page and our website. But some of those specific numbers, Mike, I mean, we have up to a $5,000 sign-on bonus for a lateral coming in with if all the boxes can be checked.
Right, yep.
And then there's a couple other options that fall in past that, with alternative for some vacation to come in, plus you get a little sign-on bonus, all the way down to just a basic new recruit being able to get a little extra check out of the gates.
Yep, so that'd be $2,000 with no experience. So send your app in once we have positions opened, and we'd be glad to meet you and hopefully get you through the process, see if this is a good fit for you for a career.
A real big one that I think impacts the community from a safety standpoint, that Lieutenant Hannell has been pretty much a big cog in the wheel, is a Siren 2020 project, is what I'm going to call it. And what is this? It's a huge radio revamp across the state. I'm going to let him talk, I guess, just in a second, but really something that the state, as a citizen, you should feel really good about, like, oh man, they can do this now as first responders if this happens. Huge advances in the communication technology and what we can do as emergency responders. So maybe you want to talk about that more.
Right, yeah, it's the whole concept. They can land a guy on the moon, but we can't talk across town in some instances. So Siren 2020 was a project that was kind of launched by the state legislature and a lot of the state stakeholders way back in actually 2011 was when the first initial approval for the studies came. And the whole concept was, we should be able to talk to everybody across the state on a massive incident. Police, fire, EMS, everybody on the same page, without having to get on scene and program radios. And I think the thing that really proved its need was DAPL, the pipeline protests that occurred south of Bismarck quite a few years ago. That was a highlighted example of one of the biggest things that came out of there was just our communication struggle that we had during that entire incident. So that complemented and just really reinforced the urgency of developing this new statewide radio system, which is Siren 2020. Our agency now is on the cusp here within the next couple weeks of going live with it. There was a lot of build-up almost probably within this last year, especially just a lot of configuration, a lot of training, a lot of policy procedure to come up. So my middle gray line here is probably from DAPL. My upper gray line's been Siren. So it's been my hair's
couple extra crow's feet.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's been a fun project though, and in fact, right here today we have Motorola, which is the company that obtained the contract from the state to roll this out. We have some Motorola trainers actually in the room down the hall here, training our dispatchers in today on how to use their new console setups and how to configure the channels and stuff like that.
So basically for an average listener not understanding radio communication or anything, we now will have the capabilities to flip a switch, flip a button, and be able to talk to Fargo PD, Grand Forks PD, any agency across the state of North Dakota?
It's with some limitations in a sense on some of the statewide operability channels. That's definitely the possibility. Because right now we're kind of limited by our tower sites that are here in Dickinson. So if we get outside the range, it's just like going outside the range of your cell phone. You just don't get service. There's a lot more towers statewide, hundreds that are either contracted through commercial partners or state-owned property, and each of those towers is piped basically into the internet. That's kind of what this whole system is. It's just an internet computer-controlled system, so that in theory, if you're near a tower here in Dickinson and you're on a regional channel, you can key up on your portable from within the building here and talk to your counterpart in Fargo on that same regional channel. All through the internet with extreme redundancy. There's a lot of redundant fiber lines so that if one gets cut, there's a backup. There's backup core facilities in Bismarck and Fargo. Motorola is actually contractually obligated to have 5 nines of reliability, so 99.999% reliable. That equates to 24 seconds in a month that the system can be down. Otherwise, it's outside of the contract guarantees on that. So they're standing behind their product. It's been up and going across the state in Grand Forks, Minot, Williston, Bismarck area. We're one of the last biggest PSAPs to kind of come online with it. And everybody before us has said what a game changer this type of radio system is and how it will be for first responders going forward.
Yeah, Mike, he invested a lot of time in this, and I'm kind of a monkey with it. He's just got to tell me what button to go to, what channel.
Turn radio on, push button.
Yeah, turn radio on, push button.
Yeah.
But I guess another one here, big one that we're in the middle of this spring. We are just went advertising yesterday, a post on our first responder symposium that's going to be hosted at the Astoria Event Center here in Dickinson, and that has, as the ad says, 3 of arguably the world's biggest names in first responder training. It's got Echelon Front, which many would know that as the Jocko company, but he's got a lot of great people that work for him. And then we have Daigle Law Group, Eric Daigle, who has moved to the front here in the last 2 years with his information and training across the country. And then Katie Kuhlman, who is one of the leaders in officer wellness, first responder wellness in general, coming in. So those are going to be April 18th through the 20th at the Astoria Event Center. We were able to raise funding across five different sponsors to be able to pay for that, and we're going to be able to host it and afford it for free to first responders in the state. And so we're thinking we're going to get maybe 150 or 200. We were talking the other day. So Astoria is working with us on that and donating some rooms and stuff. We appreciate their donations, and the rest of the contributors: North Dakota Peace Officers Association, Dickinson Fire Department, Stark County Emergency Management, your Dickinson Police Department. So that's going to be a really big one that the community should look at and be like, feel good. Hey, we're bringing top-notch quality training to emergency services, first responders in the state, and really, hopefully, maximize our attendance here locally.
Yeah, absolutely. Just even hearing the rumblings down the hallway, a lot of people are Echelon Front followers and stuff. So they heard that. My ears perked up right away when you're able to slam dunk that one. So that's awesome work on your part, man. So it's going to be exciting to see different faces across there. If we can pack that event center, that's even better, especially the message that they're carrying forward right now. So critical at our time. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Weather and such, we might have a little bit of weather coming in here later this week with some snow, but it's been a heck of a, probably can more say like a hell of a December, with a couple of those storms that came through, snow days, city was shutting down. And I'm trying to think of any highlights that we had out of those snow days from some of the officers. We did have some vehicles that were snowed in again here in the back, but we just always want to be talking about, being vigilant and safe on the roadways here. There's been some secret slippery moments in the mornings and stuff with the humidity and the fog and such that's been coming through. So just stay safe on the city streets.
Yep, it's a lot of people have been here for a while, but some newcomers that kind of get surprised by that. It's the road was just fine yesterday, and then 4 or 5 hours later, you get a little bit of a fog or something roll through, and that road slicks up just like that, and we're playing bumper cars all over town. Yeah.
So maybe without further ado, maybe we let's take it on over. So, retired Sergeant Rick Bartz, how's it going?
Good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, well, we're happy.
I think.
Yeah, so far, yeah, we are. Mike and I are extremely excited that you agreed to come and join us on the show this morning and talk everything under the sun, Dickinson Police Department in Dickinson, and try to maybe get some nuggets of knowledge that we didn't know before here. So, we know that you have that kind of ability to pull little nuggets out of thin air that, what the heck? I didn't think about that. So, that's kind of your deal. But, so I guess, right out of the gates, maybe for our listeners and our listeners and viewers, tell a little bit about yourself out of the gates. Bartzy, and then let's just say we're gonna refer to AKA Bartzy on this. This is how we.
It's Bartzy. Oh yeah, Bartzy.
Well, I had a lot of other nicknames too over the years, but that's one of the better ones.
Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about yourself out of the gates.
Okay. Well, I originally from Beach, and started in law enforcement there in 1975 as a deputy sheriff, and was a deputy sheriff for 3 years there, and then was chief of police for a year, and then I came down here in 1980. So, I'm a lateral transfer, too. I didn't get the money.
Didn't have it back then. Do you remember what your academy class number was?
Oh, I don't know. It was way back in the black and white section when they had the pictures down there, Yeah, I'm in the black and white section.
Class number?
Way back there.
Class number 1?
Something like that, yeah.
Or better yet, what's your post number? Do you remember your post number?
Yeah, 1909.
Okay, yeah. That's 1,909 officers from the start of.
Yeah.
And so the born and raised Beach, and wanted to stick around there and serve Beach for a period of time.
Well, I basically needed a job, down there, and the sheriff gave me a job there. So, I started my law enforcement career. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was kind of floating around, as a lot of people did at that era. Vietnam and all that. They were just kind of waiting to get drafted and type thing, and kind of. No goals until I got into law enforcement, and that became my goal then. So,
what was the childhood like? What was the upbringing like in the family?
Small town. It was good. The whole town raised you. You couldn't get away with anything. My dad knew it before I got home. One of those deals.
What a little family history. Your mother and father. What did they do?
Well, my dad worked for the U.S. government, USDA. They called it at the time, Soil Conservation Service, and my mother worked at the bank then in Beach. Yeah.
What was the bank's name?
Oh, it was Farmers and Merchants at the time, and then a Community First later, and then now it's Bank of the West. Now it just keeps going.
Yeah. Right. Right. Did you have some siblings you grew up with?
Yeah, I had 2 brothers. I'm the oldest.
Okay.
Yeah, I got 2 brothers, so I kind of paved the way. If I got away with it, they'd try it.
Was it a rough and rowdy house?
Not really. No, I was probably the rough and ready of most. My mother never knew where I was. I'd show up for lunch or eat supper. I was all over.
Sure.
I was one of those guys.
Yeah. Always out carousing, doing something.
Out doing something. Yeah.
What were some of those things, as a young man in beach, you guys would do, and what were some of your interests in school sports, extracurricular activities, groups, things like that?
Well, yeah, I played football and track and things like that. We used to run around together. We had a group of guys, we'd go around working on cars, stuff like that. In the high school, earlier than that, it was ride your bicycles all the way out to a dam that was about 8 miles north of town. We'd ride them all the way out there on the highway and back, and stuff like that.
Sure.
Simpler times.
Yeah, it was simpler times.
What was do you remember what the enrollment was in beach at that time?
Yeah, I remember my class was huge. Of course, we were baby boomers. I think we had 63 or something like that in beach in that class. That was a huge class with only 12 girls.
Wow.
So the pickings were slim.
Yeah, right. Because I'm not even sure right now what's populace-wise. What was the population of beach then?
Oh, it was around 1,500. It's less than that now, but
it was quite a bit bigger then.
Right. It was about maybe 1,100 now. I think probably would be a good guess.
And agriculture was the focus then too,
right? Yeah, it was agriculture. It was the big focus. Yeah.
Did they have any railroad or anything like that coming through that was much? Or
well, yeah, they had a section, and they used to have a depot there, an old brick depot, which is kind of nifty, but they tore that down now. And I remember when I was going to college, first year in college, I rode the train home from Fargo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it would stop at Beach, and then the next year they stopped in Dickinson and Glendive then, and so they had to come and get me in Dickinson then, but riding the train.
Couldn't just tuck and roll as they were
no.
What was I haven't been on a train yet in my life. That's kind of one of those things few and far between for a lot. What was the ride like on the train back?
It was the milk run. It was a slow ride. It took us all day to get from Fargo out there. Because they stopped at every little town. That one.
What'd you decide to pursue in college after high school when you left beach? What did that look like?
Well, I was kind of, like I said, adrift there. And I tried engineering, and that wasn't my deal. So then I ended up, my majors were Russian and Chinese history, and a minor in chemistry, and ROTC, or Reserve Officer Training School.
Okay. How old were you at that time on ROTC?
18, 19.
Okay. Did you have some buddies that went into that with you? Or
well, yeah, there was, you didn't have to. It was all voluntary, but that was, Reserve Officer Training Corps, yeah.
And about what year are we talking now with that?
68, 69, 70, yeah, right in there. Vietnam was still going on big time.
I guarantee there's going to be listeners and viewers that hear this and go, well, how the hell do you go from pursuing an engineer degree to street beat? Why engineering?
I don't know how that happened,
You saw a pretty girl in the class. And
well, no, engineering just wasn't my thing, getting into that. But then I went into the history thing. I enjoyed history and stuff, so chemistry was easy for me.
Okay.
I don't know what it was. It's technical, I suppose, and detailed work. That was easy for me. So.
Sure. What the gap, after high school and then through college? When are you finishing up college or finishing up that portion and thinking about this public servant time of your life?
Well, it's when I got done with college, I had a kind of little company that I sold machinery for FMC Corporation. It was sewer cleaners and stuff. In fact, I sold one to Dickinson, a truck-mounted one, and stuff. And then that was not making me a living too much. So then the sheriff offered me a job, and there's where I went. A little better monthly paycheck.
Sure. Who was the sheriff at the time?
Tony Leckler.
Tony Leckler.
Yeah.
What's the what was FMC? Do you remember what that stands for?
Food, Machinery, and Chemical Corporation.
Okay, and that was you were working out of Beach when you did that?
Right. Yeah, it was my own company. It was just I sold their machinery.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so is there a spark or just a coffee and a conversation that gets you to pivot with the law enforcement stuff at that point in your life, or what was this? Money's part of it, but
Tony and I were good friends, and he, and I rode around with him a lot and got interested in police work. Out there it's a little different. You're all by yourself, and then he offered me a job because he needed a deputy. So I said, okay.
Sure.
And it took me I didn't go to basic for a year after I was hired. That was quite a long time.
Okay.
And in fact, I went to breathalyzer school before I went to basic. It's just that's the way it added up. There was no openings at that time.
Gotcha.
What was the department at the time? You had deputy and sheriff?
That was me.
That was just you?
Yeah, the sheriff and me. Yeah, and that's in Golden Valley County, which was pretty big.
Yeah. Did shift work wise, I suppose, it didn't even really have a shift. It was just day shift and then get called out at night, or how did that work?
Right. Yeah, day shift and get called out at night, and weekends we go out at night a while, but that's about it. Basically, answer calls, if you got any.
Yeah. Well, what were some of those early moments in your law enforcement career that stuck with you forever? You look back at and shake your head at, or anything like that? Out there in the rural area, because you're right. It's worth highlighting. And the listeners, we're pretty lucky. Mike and I, always working in the municipality, city here, backups 30 seconds, minute away. But you get out to these rural areas, even still, it's 30 minutes, right?
Well, yeah. My nearest backup was like Belfield,
Right.
Right. 40 miles away, or Webo County in Montana, which was closer. But you had to pick and choose your battles, basically. You had to decide what you're going to get into.
Yeah, I mean, tactical disengagement.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. You got to decide what you're going to get into and not get into, because you're out in the middle of the Badlands and there's nobody out there.
How old are you at that time?
Oh, I didn't start till I was 25.
Okay.
So, that was,
And were you hooked immediately once you stepped into it?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know there's a farm that plays out in here for you. You got little Farmer John in your blood. When does the farming and such play in for?
Well, I always helped my dad out with the family farm, and I usually took vacation in the spring from the police department here and did that. And then when my dad passed, I tried to run it myself and work for the police department at the same time. Well, that was getting a little tough. So then I decided I could retire. So I did retire and then went full-time farming.
And where's your guys' family farm at?
It's about 80 miles north of Sterling,
Okay.
It's up there in the pothole country, Anamoose, Harvey.
Sure.
Yeah. What's the main crop that you guys usually do?
Well, we wheat, soybeans, corn, that's basically the three. Yeah.
Okay. I also know from the history here and the listeners that flying is kind of a thing for you for a period of time. You got up in the air a little bit and did, and Mike, sitting here has a affinity for flying him in his own too there. So you guys had that connection. When did you start into the piloting and flying?
Well, my dad had an airplane when I was in high school, and
what kind of plane?
It was a Cessna 170B, and then he had ended up selling that because his partner, he couldn't buy the partner out, and the partner bought him out. So, in that plane, but I got started with it. I always liked airplanes, and my dad bought me my first lesson, and and so I got in a J3 Cub.
Cub.
Yep. You had to start it by hand and everything. And he flew it from the back seat.
Tail dragger.
Tail dragger with the windows open, And that was the first one. And then it took me several years before I finally got enough money, and I took lessons and did it myself. I got my private license, and then my dad had an airplane, an old Air Coupe at that time, and I flew that a lot until recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were your total years of flying?
Oh golly, I think it was 20, 25 years, something like that.
Scariest moment up in the air.
In the air?
Yep, scariest moment. Up in the air, you had one of those pucker factor moments that, like, man, I might have something bad going on here.
Well, it was not in my plane, but I was in the Civil Air Patrol one time, and 3 of us were out doing what they call sundown patrol on the lake on Sunday evenings to make sure there's nobody wrecked or stranded out there, on a boat. And we were coming back and come to landing, and the guy had a retractable Cessna. The gear retracted. When he put the gear down, the gear lights didn't come on, that they were down. And we could see they were down, but we didn't know if they were locked. And so we did emergency procedures and landed. They were locked down, but that was scary because you do go through a lot of procedures there. Tighten up your seatbelt, turn the fuel off, turn the ignition off. You're dead sticking it in because you don't want any sparks in case you're going down,
Yeah.
Pop the door so they don't crinkle shut on you.
That's right. Take your glasses off in case you hit hard. You don't want to cut your face up. Oh, yeah. You do the whole thing. Yeah.
Vivid memory. Needless to say.
That is a memory. Yeah.
Do you still have that air coupe?
No, we sold it. It needed a lot of work, and it belonged to what we call the family trust.
Okay.
So they wanted to dissolve the trust, so we had to sell it anyway. But
it's a very rare airplane. I mean, that used to be around.
It's a 1946 air coupe. It's old.
It's
older than me.
60 horse?
No, it's 90.
90.
No, 95 on takeoff.
Yeah. Fabric lined and all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very simple airplane to fly, though.
Yeah.
So you get have this period of time over at Beach, as a deputy. Well, what was that total time like? Well,
I was 3 years as a deputy, and then I was chief of police for a year. They had a contract. This is a story. They had a contract with the city. The sheriff's office did. Well, and a new sheriff came in, and the city decided they didn't want to have a contract with him. So, and he calls me up on the phone and fires me. That's nice.
Yeah.
This is in January. Well, a week later I was chief of police, so that's how that worked. And then I came down here.
How long were you at the chief of police position?
Just a year.
Just a year.
Yeah.
And what was it about Dickinson that drew you over here?
Well, it's a backup and more opportunities for advancement type thing. You're kind of stuck there,
Sure.
If you can't go to school because then there's nobody, watching the town, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. You're really limited.
Who was the chief that hired you?
Here?
Yeah.
It was Burkhart or Barnhart. Barnhart, yep. Yeah.
And what year would that have been?
1980. Yep.
Did you have your family at this time? At this stage, your wife and kids?
I had a wife, no kids.
No kids yet.
No kids yet. Yeah.
Kids, that comes after. So you started over here in 1980. What's the shape of the department at that time?
Well, it had grown quite a bit because that was towards the end of the first oil boom, and there was quite a few people there. I think they had 3 shifts, and they kind of rotated, not 4, 3. So you'd work, I don't know, odd number of days on, and then a couple off, and maybe 1 off, and it was kind of strange.
8-hour shifts.
Yeah, they were 8-hour shifts. Yep.
Felt like you probably worked 24/7.
It was busy. Yeah. Sometimes, some nights you just go from call to call to call.
And is the oil completely gone at this time in 80, or are we still feeling the remnants there?
It was still remnants there, and like I said, there are times you'd go at night, you'd go from one call to the next call all night. You wouldn't be doing much patrolling.
What kind of calls are you going to?
Oh, fights and thefts and all kinds of stuff, accidents, and
What were you issued for equipment by the police department at that time?
Oh, I got an old number 10 Smith & Wesson 38 special, and the bullets in they were on the big slide, sometimes some of the guys had the swivel holster yet,
Yeah. Really high tech.
Yeah.
How about body armor?
No body armor.
Yeah.
No body armor. That was it. You got a baton, and I was even issued a Texas slapper sap, which I never carried because you don't want to use them anymore. I still got it at home. Weber gave me that one. What?
Yeah. What? So did you ever see it? You ever see it used early in your career? You didn't carry it. But
I have. Yeah. With some of the older guys. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
It's a attention getter.
Yeah, clear house with it. Who was your first supervisor here at the Dickinson Police Department?
Oh boy, I think it was Bob Nass, Lieutenant Nass. He's a transfer too. He came from like Fremont, California.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, as I recall, that's by Oakland.
Okay. How many people were you working with at the time when you got hired on?
At the one time during the start of we had 7 guys on a shift.
7.
7, yep. And we had 7 cars out.
Okay. And there was no investigators at that time? Was everybody patrol? Or?
There was 2. There was Jim Rice, who was later the sheriff, was an investigator, and Dave Ramo, I think. And what happened is Ramo went to full-time National Guard, and there was an opening, so I applied for it. And nobody wanted the job because it details a lot of work, Yeah. And so we got into investigations after only being at the police department for a little over 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But that I had 4 years prior experience,
Right. And so you had a couple stints in investigations throughout your career?
Right. I was in the investigations for about 9 years.
And who are some of those you served with for the longest period of time? Some of your teammates in investigations.
Well, it was Jim Rice, and then Darrell Haag and Jackie Martin.
That was
us 3.
Yeah, and we had Jackie on the show here.
Yeah, I saw part of that show
back there. So that was kind of fun to get her history kind of memorialized, and talking about some of her experiences as she came through and had her full career here.
And he mentioned Darrell Haag, and obviously, unfortunately, we lost Darrell here a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
He was living in Missoula at the time. He was kind of one that I kind of really wanted to get into this room as well, but it just at that time it just didn't work. And if you really look back at the history, and maybe Rick, you probably have a little bit more perspective on it. It seems like Darrell has a lot of his fingerprints around here. A lot of the way we kind of do stuff, and maybe the track record of how it got brought up. He kind of brought that to the Dickinson PD for the first time. Maybe some of the investigative type of stuff. Maybe a little off of that, but that was kind of the impression I got from some of the other older guys. Yeah,
he was a presence.
You got a couple Haag stories you can share?
A few,
Yeah.
There's a lady had a grooming house down on Villard, and
a legal or illegal grooming house?
Rooming.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
she had, all these guys that stay in her basement and stuff, and she was kind of a character. We'll leave her name out of it. And anyway, we'd have to go down there every once in a while. She'd call the police department on this guy or that guy that wasn't paying the rent or something. We figured we could handle everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd always call up the police department and say, "I want to talk to the governor." And he says, "What do you mean, the governor?" He says, "The governor." He says, "Lieutenant Haag." He says, "Well, why do you call Haag the governor?" And he says, "Because he carries a lot of weight."
And he was a big guy.
Yes, he was.
Definitely was a big guy. How about the one I remember you telling all the time? I always listen to the story, but there was a policy written because of Darrell Haag, right? With can't do warning shots. There's something with that one.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that was back before they had a policy. Yeah, that was. I think I remember that. That was out at the Queen City Club out there, where he tried to get this guy's attention. He was running across the railroad tracks. So, yeah, Darrell had a warning shot. No, you don't do that.
Were you present at the time when that happened?
No, I wasn't present, but.
Did it get the attention of a culprit?
I think so. Yeah.
I can't imagine the Dickinson press right now.
Oh, boy.
Oh, they'd have a field day on that one.
It's firing warning shots.
No, they don't do that.
It's specifically in policy now, so yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's a shame you had to put it in the policy, but
yeah, that's usually how it always ends up there.
That's right. That's how it
ends up there. So your career moves on here, with the police department, and so you get your investigations. When do you start to see some of the rank and promotion, supervisory positions and such in your career?
Well, yeah, Jackie and I got promoted to corporal because of the additional work, in the detective bureau, and then from there we went. The only way I could get a promotion is go into basically supervision as a sergeant. Mm-hmm. So went in there and I was promoted to sergeant. And as usual, I went to school, management school after I got the rank.
Yep.
That's a little late. Yep. It would be nice to have the school beforehand because I was learning as I went. It's not easy, changing into supervisor mode.
Yeah. Do you look back over your career now that you stepped away and some of the changes? What were some things that the department did well, over from the beginning of your career that you're like, they kind of had it together and progressed and evolved and as things went on?
Well, when they started, equipment-wise, they had cars that were not police package cars, and they did not stand up.
What was the car? Do you remember your first car?
Well, there was a Mercury Cougar, 4-door Cougars, and they're not a police car. They weren't never spec'd. And then we had Buicks after that, and they learned that these things, they wouldn't stand up to police work. You have to have a special built car. And eventually they went to police package cars, pretty much the same specs as a highway patrol, and except for the engine, I suppose, because we didn't need a big engine.
Who would have been in charge of the decision making at that time that would have got us into those? Somebody over the fleet, or?
Well, it was Gary Banya, and he wasn't the chief at that time, but he was a lieutenant. Mm-hmm. He was pushed that, and so did several of the other lieutenants. They needed because you put the figures down, and the maintenance costs on those were a lot higher than they would be if you had a police spec car.
Okay.
And now we're probably talking about the Crown Vics, like the early 90s.
Those were police spec. Yeah.
Yep.
Do you guys feel like those were game changers for you from a day-to-day working standpoint?
Oh yeah, they were much more reliable and they handled better, and and stuff like that. Other things, I noticed the police department here did probably before other police departments was the Citizens Police Academy. We had that before it was even advertised. Like Bismarck advertised it and said, we just don't blow our own horn enough on stuff like that. We've been the first in that all the time. We were one of the first with coded radios and stuff like that.
Sure.
One of the digital radios. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You remember what year that would have been?
Oh, golly, that was way back, when I was still in detectives. We had the digital, military-grade digital radios.
Have you had a chance to, in passing with any of the officers, in different functions, or to sit in one of these new squad cars that they're driving?
No, I haven't. I suppose it's like a B-52.
Yeah, it's pretty automated. I mean, even your gas cap lid, left open, it's giving you an alarm.
Yeah, it's actually a module. It's called Blueprint that we started putting in a couple of years ago, and it's basically just a central controller that uses if-then statements. So if your light switches in position 3, the 3 position lights, it's a big pursuit type of thing. It's got the emitter on, and you're in drive, and you got your siren going, and then all of a sudden the pursuit stops or whatever, and you throw it in the park. Well, if the gear lever is in park, then kill the siren, put the lights to a slower pattern and stuff like that. And then we've been every now and then we lose a gas hose out at Public Works or somebody forgets to leave it in. So we actually have a little magnet in the door that can say if the gear or if the lid's still open and you put it in drive, it starts honking at you. So it's just little stuff like that gets, like you said, a B-52. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just, and I suppose you got the computer in there and everything else. And then we never had onboard computers,
Right. We're on the cusp of actually upgrading to an Axon. So Axon's the same company with Taser. They also do our body cameras, and then now they're coming out with the in-car video system. So now our in-car video system is going to be Axon, and it actually has integrated LPR in it, the license plate reader technology. So you're driving around, get 8 lanes of traffic, and if there's a stolen vehicle that's on the hot list, you'll know it right then and there.
Boy, doing all the work for you.
It is, yeah.
And, you think about how that frees up bandwidth to be able to do, other things, when you're behind that wheel.
Right. Well, you're doing so many things. You got to be careful.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And people just don't sometimes, I think, appreciate or understand the difficulty in some of that. You'll see, you hear from the community how did an officer miss this or how did they miss that, and then you quickly kind of give them some tidbits and nuggets like, hey, this might have been what's going on in the car, radio's going on, and
right,
and they see the stuff over here. I mean, you got this finite, ability to process all this stuff. So,
speak of, the original in-car videos were really crude,
The VHF. That's all. Old. Did you have VHF when you started?
We did.
Okay. Because I think right after you started, maybe we started doing DVDs. But crawling in the trunk to have to.
Oh yeah, I was in the trunk, and then it would get cold and freeze up on you, and it's just bad.
Yeah. You remember when those first got brought in? Was there much pushback on getting those videos in the
car? Some of the guys were a little anxious on it. You got to be careful what you say. I remember I wasn't a couple of times.
I kind of forget.
And then the guys be replaying the videotape, excuse me, over and over in the squad room. And said, "Look at Bart said."
Yeah. Well, and the next part of that is obviously with body cameras now. Where they're on so much when our men, but
it makes us better.
It has. It has. I think it's paid for itself and saved us more times than not.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And even defense attorneys, they'll even talk now that the body cameras are obviously benefit us much more than they benefit them.
That's right.
So
it's a point in time thing.
Yeah, exactly. What about highlighted, cases and big moments through your time in the community here, and things that you've always just kind of held on to, real fond, big, things like that you could share with the listeners and viewers?
Well, when I first started in detectives, there was no training for that, and it's kind of a learn on the go. And I remember we had the first shooting and stuff. We were both learning as we went, Jim and I. And then over the years, we added them up, and then, of course, there was the big one, the Huber, but after that, there's several others, homicides. Yeah.
Yeah. So if my timeline works right, probably the biggest one that you would have had right out of the gate would have been the Swanson murders, and we had Chuck on. He talked about that, Jackie. We were at the Swanson. I was right in on that too. Boy, that was a tough one because that was a transient motel. Everybody living there was transient, and they all had secrets, and it was just strange. And who are you going to pick?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was the Swanson, for those that may not be familiar, that's down there near O2 Motorsports right now, and Heiser Motors, right? Used to be.
Yeah, it's right across. It was right across the street. That empty lot across the street from 05 or O2 Motorsports.
Sure. Yeah. And so what was that like? No experience and training, I guess, in that kind of field. And then was that something you're like, you felt like, I like this. This is what it's about.
Well, yeah, I did like that, because you got to jump in with both feet. He says, okay, we got to do this right, and you go from one point to the next. Mm-hmm. You got to be pretty organized and detail oriented. And I guess I am detail oriented. Mm-hmm. I ended up doing a lot of the crime scenes on later, because I am, and did photography work. I went to the FBI photography school at Quantico, and I ended up doing a lot of the crime scene photography work for a lot of the big cases.
Yeah. When did you attend Quantico out there for that?
I think that was 89, 90, somewhere around there.
They make you take the train, or they buy you a plane ticket?
They bought me a plane ticket, both ways. They even brought me one back, which is, oh, that's nice.
not a one way.
Yeah, not one way. Yeah.
So with our photography here in town, I just remembered this now. Back in the LAC before they did the remodel, we actually had our own dark room there. So did you actually develop your own crime scene pictures?
I was in charge of the dark room. Yeah, it was black and white pictures, but I developed all the pictures and printed the pictures, and I didn't print them full size. It just strips, and if they needed a full size one for court, then I'd go in and print that. Yeah.
How does that actually the process work? Do you remember how like the different procedures that you had to do to get it?
Well, you do a lot of work in the dark by feel. What I did is they had a bulk film, and you could load these canisters in the dark by your wine. So many wines meant so many frames picture, and then when you developed it, you had developing tanks with the chemicals and the timer and all that, and then the wash. And then you let them dry, and then you had an enlarger that you put on there, and you could make contact sheets. That's where you just put the film on a sheet and then take a picture of it, and then they're just little, But then if they picked their picture they needed, then I could enlarge that. It was a simple black and white. I learned to do that at the FBI Academy. You had to take your own pictures and develop your own pictures to the satisfaction of 3 professional photographers.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was the timeline on average on developing when you got to that period in the dark room? What's total time to?
If you get something developed,
yeah,
about an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they got to dry. Of course, you got to hang it to dry, and then you can print it. Yeah.
That's hard to imagine because you think now that we have our digital cameras,
right?
And our if an investigator goes out now, I mean the expectations on an average scene, be it an unattended death or burglary, they're coming back with 100 to 200 to 300 pictures, and if you take a bad one, you don't need to worry about it. You just take more, and you have that ability to be able to just.
Yeah, you were a little more circumspect when you had to develop them, print them,
Yeah, and you got this limited amount of film in the camera.
Right, yeah. We only used to load like 12 on the cameras in the cars because they're usually for accidents,
Okay,
if there's a big scene, like I would come out with the big pro camera and do a lot more. Later on, we started doing color, pictures, but we'd have to take them to the Photoshop, and of course that's a little iffy, especially if they're pretty bad. Mm-hmm. And then you have to have them sign an affidavit that they haven't been reproduced and all that. It gets cumbersome to get them into court.
Yeah, it was
that way.
And there were some issues. You remember?
Oh yeah, you have to have an affidavit that they didn't alter these or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, if I did it myself, I could say no, it wasn't altered.
Right.
Or anything, right in court. Yeah.
What was your favorite part about being in investigations? Was it the crime scenes? Or did you like interviews? Did you have something
I was never that good at interviewing. I went to some interview classes, but actually the crime scenes and the detail work would probably be more interesting to me than interviewing. To me, you have to develop your own style interviewing, and mine was different than others people. I wasn't a hard charger. Mm-hmm. I was like a good old boy you to death, and
you were the good cop versus the bad cop.
Well, I was a good old boy you to death. Sometimes I have been known to raise my voice at a time.
Yes.
Just to gain control.
Yep, I vividly remember that one. That was when I was in Rick's crew, a brand new out of here, and not more than 20 years old, and 130 pounds. I did not have, scene presence at all. And I remember this one call. This female was just chirping me and just would not listen to anything. Couldn't talk sense into her. Old RC jumps in and basically just gives her a really good command, really boom to the point. It shut her up. And after that, I walk away from the scene. Rick turns to me and said, "Command presence."
Yeah. That was a learning experience, right, Mike?
Very, very much so.
Well, that's what you try to do as a supervisor. You had to try to instill into your guys,
Yep.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
You go back, you do your period, the last period in investigations, and you finished your career out on patrol as a sergeant.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So what's that period of time like for you? Nearing the end of your career. Reflect on that, and supervising the younger generation coming in, and you ever think about how things had transitioned from you being the newbie coming in, to
right?
Things were to now you're in that position.
Well, you always give them the benefit of the doubt. You really, they're learning, unless they're really experienced. You always give them a break sometimes, but you got to set boundaries. It says this is it. I know I like to use the phrase that one guy told me years ago. It says, sometimes as a policeman you have to do the hard right thing. Yep. And that's tough, and you have to learn that. And I always like to keep it light in group meetings. I remember I used to, about once a month, I'd go get sliders in the morning, and everybody'd have, we'd have boot checks to see who had the dirtiest boots, and then they'd have to buy pizza and stuff like that. It's a family thing.
You'll have to lighten everybody. What are sliders?
Sliders are McDonald's sausage, egg, and cheese thingies. They just slide right down and then slide right out.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And it's a lot of people from the outside that watch. I mean, it's good to have that in a guy like that, because it accumulates over time and things get heavy over time. And if you're not keeping ourselves and each other in check, it can end up being a heavy wheelbarrow that you're rolling down.
Well, yeah, this is not an easy job, and it's not meant for everybody. And it can get real serious real fast, and so you got to keep it light when you can. Do
you have any pieces of advice you think that you would give a young RC, coming into the field? As you look back, one piece of advice that you wish somebody would have told you back in the years, and what would that be for our young officers? Because we have a lot of the young listeners and viewers from our department and some of the other local agencies that watch this.
My advice is keep a journal. Keep a journal of what happens, because you're going to forget a lot of that stuff that happened, and you shouldn't.
Yep.
I know every once in a while I'll come up with these stories, and my daughter is a writer. She's published a book and everything. Mm-hmm. And she'll run and write this down in a journal so she doesn't forget it for later use, maybe in a book or something. But, yeah, a lot of these stories, like, I got lots of them, The Gnarly Dog story,
Yeah, can you talk about that?
That was when I first got here. Jackie and I were in the car together, and we just stopped at the come and go, or not, it wasn't come and go, but a stop and go or whatever, something on the north end of town. We got this. We call them Gnarly Dogs because they've been on a roller all day, We had the Gnarly Dogs and a slushy. And we just got these and got in the car, and we got a call that some guy just shot himself down on the south side. So here we are going down 3rd Avenue West, and basically the slushy in one hand and the Gnarly Dog in the other, going 70 miles an hour down there. It doesn't work. Finally it probably went out the window. I don't know. But yeah, I call it the Gnarly Dog story.
Who was driving those, Jackie or you?
I think Jackie was driving. That was scary. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I guess I just maybe. You have any other fond moments like that? Some fond memories?
Yeah, but I don't know if I can think of them now or not. Other than that, we used to have staff meetings. The detective bureau, and Jackie and I and Darrell Haag, you got to understand, was very organized, type A personality. Okay, he'd have this list on his pad, the stuff he wanted to go through, and he'd check them off as he talked to us about them. Okay, and so we knew how he was like that. So we would sit there and move stuff around on his desk, like his little cup holder, move it over here and stuff, and that would just destroy his concentration. He says, come on, you guys, and he'd pull it back, you know. And then another thing was we were both left-handed, Jackie and I.
Oh.
So we had left-handed scissors, and a left-handed ruler, and stuff like that. And Darrell he was so right-handed. He'd come into our offices. You know, what's this thing? His ruler's starts from the wrong side. You know.
Yeah. Since you've left the department and looking at it, anything you really noticed about the PD, like in the change, you know, just because you've stayed in touch pretty well, you know, since your retirement with us up here, those ones.
Well, you know, it seems to be you keep modernizing, which is good. You're on the cusp of modern compared to a lot of other departments. Yeah. You're ahead of the ball game a lot of time, which is I'm kind of proud of that this department stays that way.
Yeah.
And
we sit on now, we have on paper, we're at 48 and a half, 48 and a half total sworn, and 72 positions total. I mean, in the underneath.
That's quite a bit more, because when I was there, we only had like 25. Yeah. 25 sworn, you know, somewhere around there. That's quite a jump. Yep. But you need it, though. I'm kind of glad I retired before the second oil boom. Yeah. There's a lot going on.
When was your retirement date officially? Remind us.
Oh, it had to be February 2008, 9, somewhere around there. You know?
Yeah, so you were right there. You probably saw it coming.
I saw it coming. Yeah. Yes, I said, do I really want to do this again? You know, I remember one night we had 17 drunk oil workers and cowboys in that one city jail cell downtown, because at the time we had a city jail and a county jail. And we had 17 of them in that one cell down there after a big fight down at some nightclub on the south side of town, which isn't there anymore. But you know,
yeah,
that was one with the tailed airplane, right? What was?
Oh no,
was that?
No, this was the one south of town, down by the Come and Go.
Oh,
it's not there anymore.
Yesterday's or whatever that
22 Club or something like. Yeah.
How many were you putting in the back seat of the car on that one?
Oh, we had multiple cars. You know.
Yeah.
And then I got stories. We had one guy we called the Animal. We had to chase him down one time and got him in the alley, where the fire department is downtown. The alley there, and the side door went into the jail there, our jail. And he got him there, and he was just massive and wild and crazy, and he damn near literally tore the hinges loose on the back door of the squad car. You know, we called him the Animal. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, and you didn't have any tasers or anything back then?
No tasers. No.
Yeah, mace though, right? I heard a lot of mace stories from back then.
Well, yeah, Darrell used to get by the mace by a caseload. You know, Darrell. Yeah, Haag. Yeah. I shouldn't be telling the stories on the guy like that. But.
Yeah, it's like you said, we were just nice to be able to. We really did want him to come back on the show at some particular time and to be able to.
Oh, he cut a wide swath. Darrell did. Yeah, absolutely. He's a great guy.
We actually got one guy who's down at the Tasers big annual event in Las Vegas right now, and he let us know yesterday that as far as technology and modernization, that Taser's got some technology coming out where you think of a Taser now and you get your one shot, you know, and you got your probes that come out, and they're evolving to multi-shot now. So
really?
Yeah, accurate. He said up to 45 feet.
Yeah,
45 feet. You know, as accurate as a pistol. And to be able to, you know, have multiple rounds, you know, so if you miss on the first one, you have the ability to follow up. And so, you know.
Yeah, if he can get through Carhartt, we're good. Yeah. We'll be good up here for that.
Yeah, well, you got to have the longer probes. We used to always change them when we had the Tasers later on. Is in the winter, you'd have different probes, longer probes to go through the coats and stuff.
Yeah, it's still a big problem for us, you know, the clothes and the winter gear up here and stuff. Some people don't understand they work about half the time for us, you know. Some people just think they're foolproof, as you know, and oftentimes.
No, they're not.
Misconceptions.
Mikey, you had to
Oh, yeah.
You were the first one to use one.
I got the toaster.
You were the first one when we first got them.
Yes, we were. I think I was on your shift too, right?
No, it wasn't my shift.
Wasn't your shift? I had a new trainee with me, so I was doing FTO. We get a call of a fight at the Paragon.
Right.
This is back when we had a lot of DSU students there, right? 2006, right?
Yeah.
And so we just get done with the taser training that during shift briefing, and we go out, and 2 hours later, here we're at a massive fight in the parking lot. Me and my rookie, we get on scene. There's this one guy with a shirt off, and he's just posturing up, and perfect application for the taser. I turn mine on, I hit the trigger, and it goes. Probes go out, and nothing happens, and he just keeps coming towards me. Rookie sees that, so he uses his taser and drops him, and then
from the back.
From the back. Turns out somehow my battery latch got disconnected, so it had enough juice to get out, but not enough to cycle it. The funnier part of the whole story, though, is we put him in the car, and both him and I were, what's that smell on the back? There's something smelling. Get him up to the jail, and it's like, we get him up in the elevator. It's like, God, that smell is still following us around. Get him up to the jailer. Get him squared away. About 20 minutes later, the jailer calls me. Do you know this guy ended up defecating his pants? Oh, no, huh? And apparently that's like a 1 in 1,000 thing that you get off the taser. Involuntary bowel movement.
Yeah, you're known far and wide for that one.
That was the first official.
That was the first official Dickinson PD.
Yeah.
Ended up doing that. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. We're coming up, a little over an hour, RC, and just, obviously we're appreciative to have you in here. I mean, you got any other moments in time, you reflect on Dickinson Police Department, things you can share for our viewers and listeners that you thought about coming into the interview today to just add on your own and what was obviously a really successful career,
Well, I appreciate that. It's just, you got to work at it. Especially as supervision, I was talking about, a lot of my time was as a sergeant supervisor, and you have to kind of not groom your shift employees, but to recognize what their strong suits are, and when it comes down to it, then you can assign each officer to what he's good at. Like I had one guy that was good at traffic. One guy that's good at interviewing. So if you know that, you got to know that, and then you can kind of assign them on when they need it.
Did you have a funnest period when you thought back at that was the absolute best? Sometimes people look at the supervisory side of it, it can be taxing over a period of time, because managing personalities. Was that, but for you, was that a good period of time? Or?
Well, managing personalities to me was a little more difficult. That was more of a independent self-starter, like in detectives. I was more comfortable there. But I knew that at that point, the only time you get a pay raise is to go up in rank, which I'm sure it's not like that now. You have longevity and stuff, but at that time, that's the only way. So I had to get into supervision.
Yeah. That's good stuff. We have anything else, Mike, we talked about before?
Just to piggyback off that, I look back at my career so far and the time I spent on Rick's crew. Looking back at that was probably the most fun I had, just because of what he was describing, his leadership philosophy. That I really latched onto that. I tried to emulate that through my supervisory type of thing, and it was always coming to work, knowing you're working for Rick that day, and he kept the mood light, and we never had a crummy day, and even the bad calls that we had, there was always something to laugh about sometime during that day, and Rick was phenomenal for that, and I owe a lot to him for where I got to today. A lot of his philosophies I try to emulate, so I really appreciate all you've done for me and what you've done for the department over the years, Rick.
Well, appreciate that. My daughter says I have a very strange sense of humor. So yeah.
Well, for as far as your legacy and what do they say after you leave type of thing, and that footprint that you leave there, you should find a little bit of peace knowing that there's a lot of RC stories. There's a lot of Bartz stories that are still shared. Now we're 10, 14. 12, 14 years after.
And a lot of them are not fit for the public.
Not behind by the paywall for that.
Right.
but to obviously a positive impact, and most of them are followed up with chuckles and laughs and smiles and stuff like that. So, I never had the pleasure of directly working underneath you. I had Dan Brown at that time, and a couple other ones, Dave Wilkie and Dustin Dossinger and such, but I missed out on that chance. But I saw enough in passing at shift change and stuff, I got a little sprinkle of salt and pepper.
Yeah. We always had fun in our staff meetings in the morning,
Yeah. Well, we got a portion here that we like to finish with called Speedcuffing.
Oh boy.
Yep. And you can hear that in the background there. And this is really just a 30-second, I present something to you and you just give a quick answer back. It's pretty safe territory, but it's pretty fun. And we'll just see how many we can get through and how you do on that, okay?
Okay.
Sound good?
All right, here we go.
All right, here we go. All right. Twin prop or single engine?
Single engine.
Revolver or semi-automatic?
Semi-automatic.
Shift breakfast at the legendary Paragon or sliders from McDonald's?
Oh, Paragon.
Name as many countries in Central America as you can.
Oh, here we go. You heard that. You got that from the newspaper.
One car in your lifetime you wish you had back. One vehicle you wish that you still had.
My Triumph.
Your Triumph. Yeah, what year was that?
67.
67, yeah. Aaron Rodgers, Bart Starr. I know we're past, but you're Packers guys, so.
Oh, Bart Starr.
Yeah. I guess
You are a Packers guy, right?
No.
Oh, I thought you always had a Packers.
I'm thinking NDSU. I saw the gold and yellow.
Raiders
is your.
I like the old Raiders with Madden.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, we're past the deadline on that one, so the buzzer, so that one don't count.
We had the Central America one. There's an inside joke with that one. I might have to put that on the screen for. That was back in the day when the press was going around.
The press was going around and asking
with the question
everybody,
of the day.
Yeah, the question of the day, can you name all of the Central American countries? And I was the only one that could.
Chuck gave Nicaragua or something. That was it. And that's all he could do.
No, I gave them all. I even had Belize.
Yeah.
And then I told him Belize used to be British Guiana. And the guy was going,
Yeah, he pulled up the article the other day.
We got an old scrapbook of some of that old stuff to look at.
Well, thanks a bunch, RC.
You bet. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we really appreciate this little over an hour getting to spend with you. And I know we're going to see you a bunches more times. He's still a frequent flyer in our coffees in the morning, keeping in the loop with the...
Yep, everyone I can, yeah,
with the gossip and such. So I guess with that, just want to make sure listeners and viewers, you guys are continuing to share the podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music. Make sure to like our YouTube channel, click subscribe on there, get on our Facebook page.
15,000. We just crossed 15,000. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. We're anything we can do to keep that growing. It's amazing. Good job, Lieutenant Hannell. RC, we'll be chatting here soon.
Okay, you bet.
Have a good one.
Stay safe.